Sure.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to ELI, the only podcast in India where we bring a new founder on every episode who will talk about their journey and their story of building a startup. And today we have with us Gaurav Bhagat, who is the founder of Consortium Gifts. And it's India's fastest growing corporate gifting company. Hi, Gaurav. Welcome to ELI.
Hey, Priyanjan, and thank you for having me on. And have to say something about your consistency. 5 years, and you've been at it. A lot of podcasts come and a lot of podcasts go, but you've been at it, and creating some great content and been listening into some of your podcasts as well. So awesome, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Uh, to start with, Gaurav, would love to hear about your journey prior to entrepreneurship. So, what all things that you did before entrepreneurship? I think your journey is interesting because you started doing your own things right at the school. You were doing some business during school time itself. So, tell us about it. How was your early life? Where did you study? What business you started during
Of course.
school? And how did you sort of venture into this whole entrepreneurship world?
Right, right. Yeah, thank you for that. So I think entrepreneurship, runs in the family, runs in the blood. My grandfather had started, a firm which was became one of the largest ceramic manufacturing companies in Bengal. My
Hmm.
dad was, always an entrepreneur, and they've had their ups and downs. In fact, both of their businesses, actually had many downs. In fact, and eventually, both were wiped out. So
Hmm.
I think that risk-taking ability, that risk-taking capacity, was kind of, always there. My tryst with entrepreneurship, probably started, when I was 16 years old, 1992. I had just moved from boarding school. I was studying in the Lawrence School, Sana and Kasoli, where there was no scope of entrepreneurship. But from
Hmm.
there, I was moved, to Delhi, and I was at the Delhi Public School, Mathura Road, where it's a school of hustlers. It's a school of street smart people who get stuff done. So it was at that time that I actually got introduced to the stock market, and it was
Hmm.
1992. It was the time of Harshad Mehta.
Right.
And while I was very fascinated with the stock market, I said, why not make a board game on the stock market?
Hmm.
So my first project in entrepreneurship was actually creating a board game on the stock market.
Wow.
And I remember printing a few hundred copies and then going from toy shop to toy shop in Delhi, and asking them to keep the game and keep the board game, and all of that. So that's how the journey really began with the stock market game. I think my first big hit was at the same time, maybe a few months later. I created the first pack of WWF trump cards. Some of your
Hmm.
listeners might be actually aware of that
Yes,
product. Yeah, they may have
I
played that
used to
growing
play
up
that.
as well. Yeah, so I made the first pack. My cousins were coming in from the US, and I asked them to bring in two magazines from there, and I cut them. I created the 30 original 30 trump cards, went to a printer, printed them. And yeah, I think that was, what really exploded and, started making me some good money. So that was kind of confirmation that yes, there is, money to be made, and entrepreneurship is my thing. So it started when I was 16 years old.
All right, I think this is very interesting. How did you arrive at Consortium? Corporate gifting is a different gig altogether. There is a sort of ecosystem that is running around that. How did you enter that?
Yeah, so now we're talking about the first year of college. So 1995, 96, that's when I was in the first year of college. And gifting was very different than what gifting is today. And I know we will talk about that, going further as well. But purely by accident, a friend and I, we started a consortium. It was called the Consortium at the time. And we started the company, and we started by making gym gloves. We used to go to a gym, we used to work out, and you never had good, quality gloves that were available to work out in a gym.
Mm-hmm.
Again, a friend from the US had come. She brought a pair. I said, let's see how we can make this here. And we eventually found, a factory that could come close. And while we started making the gloves, this guy was also someone who would make, Eva foam. And Eva foam is the foam that's used on the base of mouse pads. So he
Right.
said, while you are going ahead and doing gloves and gym accessories, all that is great. But he said, you're smart guys. If you go out and you offer corporate mouse pads to companies, it actually might become, an interesting proposition. And that's how we started. So our first products, were mouse pads. I remember
Mm-hmm.
making them for our company first with our logo. Then we walked into a compact showroom in Delhi, and they liked it. They said, make some for us. Eventually, that went to compact in Bangalore, and one thing just led to another. Then we kept adding, products and SKUs. Once we done mouse pads, they said, hey, can you do t-shirts, and can you do other stuff? And we just kept adding, products to the portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still a hobby, I would say, all the way through college and maybe to about a year later. It was not still like pro, but I think it was in 1999 where I finally went, all in and went ahead and created a formal company, brought in the first, couple of helpers and people. And of course, we cracked a big Maruti deal in 1999. And post that, there's been no looking back.
Wow. Uh, Tell us a bit about this industry. How big is this industry right now in India and globally? I think every company these days is uh, wanting vendors into corporate gifting. They want to gift their employees during Diwali or Holi.
Of course.
During joining, there is a joining kit.
Yep.
Uh, so lot of these gifting things, it's a trend now. Uh, how big is this market?
Oh, so massive. Just to give you context, I mean, you spoke about global first. So let's take a look at some of the big global companies, right? And the top few are all billion-dollar enterprises, right? So the US market is divided into suppliers and distributors. And distributors would be us, like companies, who actually go ahead and make the products available, to corporates. Um, I mean, the top five are all companies that are doing $800 million plus. Okay, so those are just that. So it's a massive market. Even in India, I mean, huge market. Of course, I think what one has to be mindful of is that while it's, I mean, there have been studies that have gone up and, said 20,000, 30,000 crores, and more. But I think what one has to be mindful of is that, A, this includes, a lot of white good buys. It includes, a lot of, schemes that might happen where dealer rewards are happening and cars are being given. And
Mm-hmm.
so all of that kind of stuff is there as well. So very, very big, market size. I mean, I would put India at probably somewhere, and again, if we talk about organized, unorganized, anywhere in the range of 5 to 6, billion US is where I'd put the market as. Of
Wow.
course, you probably have 175,000, gifting and promotional product companies as well. That's another story. So you'll very rarely find, people who are established in the space and who have the wherewithal to make the big stuff happen.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is a big market and it is growing spectacularly. I mean, year on year, I was sitting in on one of the discussions where we were talking about a year-on-year growth of 13 to 14%, even on conservative estimates.
Wow. I think that's massive. And a lot of this is because of the whole social media things. Whenever you give something to employees, they tend to post it on LinkedIn, on Facebook, Instagram, and that's how other companies are, sort of, noticing that this is how employer branding is happening. Tell us a bit about the supply chain aspect of it. Who sort of makes the raw material for them? I understand a lot of this is sourced from China. How is the global ecosystem designed around this?
Yeah, so let's look at it from the India perspective. So you're right, a lot of it, used to come from China in the past. I mean, if I was to go back pre-pandemic, maybe 2018 and prior, there's a time where about 85% of our products were coming in from China as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But today, I mean, thanks to, Make in India and all the initiatives that the Prime Minister and the government has run, there's a phenomenal amount of, self-reliance. There's a phenomenal amount of, production that's now happening within the country. In fact, we've gone from 85% China sourced to probably 90% India sourced now.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's only 10% of stuff, coming in from China because you've had such amazing companies and the vendor ecosystem, which is now available here, is really doing a really good job. So, globally, there's obviously still, China is playing the, biggest role in supply chain. Those factories and that nation is just, created from the perspective of just being, the supply chain to the world. And I often tell people, sometimes someone will come to us and they say, we want, 500,000 units of a product. Now, in India, that would take like 6 months if you're lucky. In China, they take 30 days to set up and do everything. On 35th day, it would have shipped. So their scale, and their capacity to produce in mass is still unparalleled. A lot of people say, oh, there's a China replacement, drive that's coming, and and the US is now going to be replacing, China as a supplier. It's going
Mm-hmm.
to take forever. I mean, we're so far, behind on, on that piece. In India, I mean, we're great for doing the 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 50,000. But once you really start talking big, and big bulk numbers, we just aren't there yet. Um,
Got it.
so yeah, I would say that's where we currently are actually.
Got it. And I understand there is a lot of tech innovations happening in this space. 3D printers are now printing the gifts. AI is involved in the whole design, ideation process. There are also some SaaS platforms, like we were discussing about Zozo Day, which has come up, which are sort of, platformizing this whole corporate gifting things for corporates, where both the HR people and the employees can log into,
Yeah.
probably accumulate points and redeem gifts based on their choice. A lot of innovations are happening. Tell us about it.
Yes, you're right. But interestingly, very few companies actually understand, the tech ecosystem as well. I mean, 3D printing, and also, of course, printing innovation that's coming in where we're talking about now, DTF and spot UVs. And, so all of these printing technologies are obviously things that people, adapt to a little quicker. But when it comes to technology, again, very few companies are understanding that. Some of the newer age, startups are they understand the need of AI. Most people, for them, AI is just still going to chat GPT and, getting, maybe some ad scripts or, getting their email templates, which is very sad. I mean, there's so much, more that can happen on the creative side. There's so much more that's happening, on the perspective of, let's say even the marketing side, but we'll come to that separately.
Mm,
Very few people are understanding, even the tools, like in the SaaS ecosystem, for example, that are there for managing client data in terms of CRMs, for branding ecosystems. I mean, today, you everyone would have heard of Doppel when Google launched Doppel, and they said that now you can put on a garment virtually and see how that's looking on you. But I just wonder how many websites in the corporate gifting side and promotional product side are actually integrating technologies where you have augmented reality, where a product can be taken and can be seen on someone's desktop,
mm, mm.
so that you don't actually have to physically be there. I mean, we have a great experience center in Delhi where people do come and they walk in and they visit. But how many people are actually using virtual reality where your experience center is actually traveling to a client, and using a Meta headset, you can actually go ahead and do an entire walkthrough of a showroom, hold up a product. I mean, how many people are really doing that, right? So those kind of things haven't really come here yet. I think it is a blue ocean that is looking to be, explored. But very few people are actually leveraging technology, even for things like, prospecting, even things for outreach, even things for making unique presentations. I think way long, long way to go. So yeah, I think we're not even scratching the surface right now.
Got it. Can you tell us a bit about the business side of things? For example, how do you acquire clients? Who are the stakeholders you reach out to in a company? What is the size of order that you look out for? And etc.
Of course. So in terms of stakeholders, like, there will be several. One, like you mentioned, obviously the welcome kits and, employee onboarding kits and reward and recognition is very big. So in recent times, HR has started playing a very big role, in as being a buyer. I mean, there's a time where it wasn't really there, but I think the pandemic was the turning point where, stuff had to keep going to people's, homes while employees were working, virtually or in hybrid mode. And that set a trend, like you said, which is now there's no going back on, right? So today it's about people posting on LinkedIn, people posting on Instagram, and it's almost become a tool for recruiters to say, oh my God, my goodie bag was better than yours. And, so come to my company. So HR has obviously become a very, very big stakeholder. See, other guys that are big stakeholders in this space would obviously be sales teams because you have, things like GWP, which is gift with purchase, right? When you go to the mall and you buy, let's say, Levi's apparel worth 10,000 rupees, you get a trolley bag or you get a backpack free. So GWP, right? Liquor companies will do it all the time where you buy in duty free, you buy, two bottles of booze and you get a trolley free. So, and that's obviously driven by the sales side of things. So salespeople and sales heads are obviously, very, very, big stakeholders as well. Interestingly, you can also look at marketing because, when a product launch is happening, Now what's happening is that Maruti is launching a new car, press conferences are happening, mall activations are happening. I mean, car companies had it so good, and car companies have been our clients for the longest time. But what had happened in the past is that they had just sold on, at least in the last few years, there was so much demand and so little supply, especially post pandemic, that everything was just selling on its own. But now that's not the case. Now there is pressure again. So when a launch happens, you're looking at press gifts, you're looking at mall activations, you're looking at dealer walk-in giveaways.
Hmm.
So it's so vast, right? Once you really get into it, everyone is a buyer for gifts and promotional premiums. And interestingly, this is a line where I say, or people say, oh, downturn is coming in the economy. I'm like, you know what? If there's a downturn coming in the economy, it's actually good for business because what is now happening is there's going to be more spend in below the line. Like we're below the line, right? Above the line is, when you got advertising, when you got TV,
Hmm.
when you got spends on banners and hoardings. Below the line is give them something that they can walk away with. Unko yaad to rahega. And
Right.
what happens then is that BTL actually picks up anytime there's a slowdown. So it's actually not a bad thing at all.
Hmm. So one thing I remember about gifting is I used to be an employee at certain point, and as an employee, I used to get monetary. Of course, the money was credited in my account. But once in a while, when I used to get a gift, everybody sort of notices. My wife would see this gift has come from this particular company. It will stay in the house for a long time, and it's a constant reminder of you know how one company has paid you off, paid you back. So I think there is a big tangible aspect to gift compared to any money that a employer pays. But one particular aspect which I have noticed, and I think this is a big hack that many of the corporates use. Gifts are not taxable, so whenever you want to pay somebody or somebody wants to receive something from you, uh, they would rather take it as a gift because it's not audited for, it's not accounted for. uh, there is no, you will not be taxed because you received a gift from, especially the smaller the gift, the lesser audit, lesser amount of compliance comes in. So can you talk about that aspect as well?
So not necessarily, and I think that the government has kind of figured that out. In the past, if you remember, there was a time when a FBT had come, which was a fringe benefit tax, and that was to basically rein in exactly this potential aspect. The other aspect that's also come in is that if you're giving something beyond a certain value to an employee, there is actually a TDS that's deductible on that particular spend amount on that particular person as well.
Mhm.
And obviously, the third aspect is that now a lot of companies are not able to claim GST benefits on spends on gifting. So I think that the government did realize that there was, a kind of a loophole over there, and I think that's been plugged to a very large extent. So pharmaceutical gifting. I mean, this is an area where,
Yeah.
doctors were being taken out and, on junkets and given like crazy expensive stuff, right? Like we never did pharma gifting, but I know people who were getting, gifts that ran to lakhs.
Yes.
And it was, as you mentioned, it was, a loophole in the system. But then the pharmaceutical lobby kind of, plug came in and they said that, hey, listen, this has stopped. Doctors cannot be gifted things more than 1,000, 1,500 rupees. Insurance and banking, when people were onboarding customers, they were being given crazy amount of things. I mean, I remember even in the mobile phone space, Airtel and Vodafone back in the day were probably our largest clients because they were giving like a wristwatch to everyone and they were giving bags to everyone. Banks, when they were onboarding a customer or to bring on a customer, they were giving them, crazy amount of stuff. So all of the regulatory authorities kind of, combined and stepped in and said that this is something that has to stop. So,
Mhm.
that's happened to a large extent, or we limited at least in terms of value. So even banking, I think now there is a limit where they try and keep it to 500 rupees and below. In some cases, I've even heard like 300 rupees and below. So yeah, there is some lines that are being drawn by the authorities as well.
Got it. Any particular challenges that you have faced over the years or been facing now? I understand this is a large industry, growing very fast, and demand is there is a lot of demand, less supply and more demand. Uh, how are you navigating this space? Any particular challenges that you have been facing?
So challenges may have happened in the past. Like let's say supply chain was an issue during the pandemic for sure because everything had dried up. Raw materials are very hard to come by. So I think that was, one point where it was a little crazy, but obviously that's now kind of opened up. A lot of people would then say that, there's an insane amount of competition. I mean, when you mentioned that, demand is good, supply is limited, not necessarily, because there are a lot of people, like I said, who are out there, and there are many people who have who are one person micro enterprises, and automatically they'll do anything like to get your foot in the door. They'll be like, oh, we'll give you cost to cost. There was one company where I know people were like, oh, what is Consortium giving it at? We'll give it at cheaper. In fact, like we'll give it 10%, 15% cheaper, which is stupid because our markups were 7, 10, 12, 15%. And obviously that company went bankrupt because you can't sustain that for too long. You can't be selling at a loss just to get your foot in the door. You're not going to be funded by like a VC player or a private equity player. And even those guys today demand that people come up and show like bottom line profitability. So that time is gone where people would just go ahead and just give all kinds of stupid rates. I think one aspect which still becomes a challenge is that people will, log on to an Amazon and they'll try and compare with, what is it selling at Amazon
Right.
on, so that kind of becomes a benchmark. And sometimes what Amazon does is that they also allocate, marketing spends to subsidize the product. So people don't understand that. Let's say there's a Photronics power bank and Photronics give it at 700, but just to make, their numbers on Amazon Prime Day, etc., they might sell it 650 bucks and they'll use that 50 bucks as a marketing budget spend. But then a company goes and says, oh, how does it matter to us? How much is sustainable, right? We're getting it cheaper. So why don't we go
Mhm.
from there and buy it? Of course, Amazon hasn't cracked, customization and personalization and, a whole bunch of, other elements around it yet. But if they do, I think that would potentially become, a bit of a challenge. And I think the other aspect which I've seen in recent times is the need for companies to do vouchers, which they think is very convenient.
Mhm.
To my mind, I mean, vouchers is terrible. I mean, it's like giving cash out because it'll be,
Yeah.
finished, consumed, and there's no recall. Like you said, you took something back home, your wife appreciated it, other family members may have appreciated. Dude, that voucher is going to be consumed on Swiggy, Zomato, and it'll be finished tomorrow.
It's as
People
good as
remember where
money.
it came from, right? Yeah. So to my mind, vouchers is something which may have peaked and it's on its way down because people are realizing that it's not doing what it was meant to do as well.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about your other venture that you have been building with the Grant Cardone, who is one of the leading sales trainers across the world.
Right.
How did that venture sort of shape up? Why it's so different from what you have been doing?
Yeah, so Grant Cardone obviously is one of the top salespeople in the world, one of the top sales coaches and trainers in the world. So interestingly, we used him for Consortium in July 2017, and it was a large investment. Where we went ahead and took the plunge anyway. And then what we realized is by December of 17, we'd actually gone ahead and doubled our top line, and obviously recovered the cost of the investment we made several times over. And then I knew this just worked. By virtue of that particular, training, I actually had a chance to go across and attend one of his events in America.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I met him, and he at the time was toying with the idea of licensing. He had no licensees, and him and I got chatting again, by some act of just like I said, fate. Him and I got chatting, and then he said, "I'd love to license." I said, "I'd love to take your license forward," because people kept meeting me and saying, "Tu karta kya hai? What do you do?" And I'd say gifting, and they would be like, "I think you can do more." I mean, gifting is great, but I think you do more because when you speak, people listen, and you have this gift to motivate and inspire and all of that. So I think it was kind of something that was meant to happen, and that's where the conversation really started. That was February 2018, and
Mm-hmm.
July 18 is when I transferred the license fee, went across, spent some more time with Grant and his team, and we launched the academy in November 2018, and we've
Mm-hmm.
been able to do some amazing things in the Gaurav Bhagat Academy as well.
So how is it running? What kind of people do you train? Do you do corporate programs or do you individually run these courses?
Yep. So
And is it bringing any results?
of course. So in terms of like primarily three distinct offerings. One is something that we do for the SME entrepreneur because I'm a big follower of Simon Sinek, and Simon Sinek always says start with why. So our why here was to take 100,000, business owners, primarily in the SME space, and help them add 100 jobs, in their organizations.
Mm-hmm.
So 100,000 people, adding 100 jobs, impacting a family of four. So hence you net impacted 4 crore people, which is a super impact to have, right? Now, apart from that, also working with working professionals, because a lot of corporates call us in, a lot of graduating students want to work, or like listen in on my sessions as well. So also take a number of 9 lakh, working professionals and graduating students and help them live, what is the 10x life, and the 10x life is a life without limitations. So hence, it's a combination of doing SME programs. It's a combination of coming in and consulting organizations, but it's also about coming in and speaking at corporates, and I get called in all the time. So in fact, I'm listed on the great Outstanding Speakers Bureau. Do a lot of events for HDFC Bank, HDFC Live, Bharti AXA. I was the MDRT speaker in Boston. It's the largest insurance conference in the world, which is attended by 7,000 people. So I was there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a pretty full roster, yeah. And I think we've been able to make a really big impact. I run a 2-day boot camp. The boot camp happens once every 2 or 3 months. We've had 38 batches of that boot camp that I've already run. Each boot camp is attended by no more than 35 people. We don't do any upsells there. So a lot of coaches, trainers, and like mentors today are running a 9 rupee webinar, and then looping in someone, and then before selling them like 5 lakh rupees worth of courses. We only have one offering, which is a 14999. So that's 14,999 rupees. You come in, attend the 2-day boot camp. You get access to videos of learnings, alumni catch-ups, hand holding, you're on groups. There's an entire AI, structured ecosystem that's now coming. So yeah, it's hand holding for life. And I think some really amazing stories are coming out of there. So that is good to see.
And I think I read it somewhere. You've been advocating about AI, especially for sales use cases. I read it somewhere that you mentioned that fear of becoming redundant due to AI. So what is your advice to people who are in their late stage of career, probably 40 and above, who are genuinely worried about AI? How have been you? What would your advice be to
Yeah,
these people?
it's very interesting because one is obviously the audience that you mentioned, which are, let's say, the 40s and ups, kind of later in their career, now wondering whether AI is going to lead to redundancy. On the flip side, you also have the 16, 17, 18, 19-year-olds, who are doing a lot of the entry level jobs, which are also being eaten up by AI, and they're fearful as well. Um, and I just love, when I'm talking about AI, everyone's, got such a negative connotation. I'm almost taken back to, what Gary Vee would say when you talk about Lexity. And he said when Lexity first came, people called it the devil and all of that. So it's
Hmm.
almost like people are feeling the same way about AI as well. And my belief to everyone is that get comfortable with it. Start, playing around with it. Start, watching, YouTube videos around it. Start playing around with some of the free tools. You have one set of people who are buying everything. They're buying like 100 licenses on Cursor, and they've got Lovable, and they've got, on the development side, there's a lot that they're doing.
Hmm.
But then you've got others who not even moved to a Chat GPT plus subscription. I'm like, dude,
Right.
make the investment, $20 laga do, okay, which is $1,700. At least buy a Chat GPT, plus subscription, because it starts, understanding you as a persona. You can start, creating agents. You can start having a conversation with it on the phone. I mean, that's the minimum. Okay,
Hmm.
minimum that one should really go ahead and do. It's a very fast evolving space. I think if we had gone from, 0 to 1, maybe a year ago, I think now we're jumping 10 points every day. I mean, there is just so much that's happening. And if you follow, some of the pages on Instagram and some of the top guys and the creators in the space, like right now I'm on a cohort with Stanford, where you have Utley, who's basically the adjunct professor for AI and design thinking in Stanford, and I'm on his program right now.
Hmm.
And I'm working with some of the top minds in the world right now, because I think one cannot be left behind. But also you don't want to be like too invested and buying everything that pops up and buying annual subscriptions for everything, because it's very possible that in 1 month or 2 months, that tool that you're using right now might actually be dead. I mean, yesterday ChatGPT wasn't working for a few hours, and everyone was going crazy and everything else. And I'm like, you never know what's going to happen. So don't
Yeah.
commit to like really long-term subscriptions, but don't, not be in it as well, because it's going to be a problem. There's a lot that's happening in the space, and anyone who's not using AI to amplify their gifts, their creative skills, etc., they're in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I can relate. There was one time when ChatGPT was not working in Bangalore for about 2 3 hours. Everybody sort of shut down their laptops and started going home, and it led to a traffic jam. So that's how we have become dependent on AI now, and for a good reason as well. I think AI is solving a lot of use cases,
Yes.
becoming a part of everyday life, and that's how it will be in future.
Yeah,
All right.
when it comes to prospecting, I mean, you'd be, I mean, very, very stupid, strong word, but stupid not to use, AI for prospecting. I mean, tools like Lucia, tools like, Apollo AI, IO. I mean,
Yeah,
crazy,
absolutely.
psychometric profiling on Humantic. I mean, these are things that are just, um, I mean, givens. You have to be using these tools. I mean, I have a workshop that's coming up, in the next 2 days. And we have the entire Grant Cardone's, road to the sales system, which has a corresponding, AI tool and an agent to help everyone who comes and attends that course to ask any question. And they will have the AI agent, which will actually help them with any query in their situation if they're actually stuck.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, these are things that you must give your, trainees and your staff members. Access to this is very, very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly in the sales processes, I think AI can be a game changer. Recently, I was doing an integration of Fireflies with the CRM, and interestingly, so within a second, all the CRM records were filled with contextual data, like what was discussed in this particular meeting, and so on. It became the CRM became so rich after that. So I think that's how the AI is a game changer. All right. So, final question to you. Tell us about entrepreneurship. How would you advise others who are thinking about entrepreneurship? How should uh, how should they perceive about entrepreneurship? What to expect? And what is the process of entrepreneurship that you would say?
Okay. So, yeah, like I said, that's a fully loaded question. Entrepreneurship is definitely no bed of roses. It is going to be a roller coaster. You are going to have, a lot of ups and downs. In some cases, even a lot more downs than ups. For the first 3 to 5 years, just know that it's going to be, a super struggle, especially until you brought into place the people, the processes, even the products. I think those are things that, or services, as the case might be, until you've got that fit that has been worked out, it is going to be, a struggle. Um, for people who want to, go down that path, I'm like, yes, it's a great idea. I've frankly have been, a big proponent, even for entrepreneurship,
Mhm.
where, what is happening is that within an organization, you have, a role, you have, it's a job, but
Yeah.
you're actually running and leading a department where you're creating, value, you're bringing in revenue. So I think entrepreneurship versus entrepreneurship, I think entrepreneurship is something I'd highly recommend for people who are already working. For people who want to go ahead and try it, I mean, definitely go ahead and do it. But just know that on the entrepreneurship side, there's a lot that's changing. There are certain, ideas that were great even 6 months ago, which are dead today. I've had a lot of friends who've left, good jobs, and they've decided to go down that path. And 6 months later, they've come back and said, "Oh my God, I don't know what we were even doing or thinking to go down that path."
Mm.
Of course, extremely, rewarding once you do crack it. I started from home with nobody. Today we have a team of 80 plus people, and these are people who are running out and creating amazing stuff in terms of impact, in terms of content, in terms of just the footprint that they're leaving behind, which I think is fantastic. And I
Mhm.
would frankly never trade that in. It's a coin flip between someone saying that, okay, I'm willing to go out there and take that risk, to really make that big thing happen, or just play it kind of safer for now. I kind of don't align with the fact where a lot of trainers, speakers, Instagrammers, influencers, they came on and they said, dump your 9 to 5 and become a whatever preneur. I don't want to talk about it, but there were a whole bunch of these guys who actually came on, and I just think that they're doing a big disservice because they're saying do my course, and by virtue of doing my course you will become a successful entrepreneur. I mean, there is no bigger travesty and lies that exist today. You can get a head start, you can get some insights, but you have to have, capital, you have to have sustaining power, you
Mm,
have to have really thick skin. You have to be ready to know that, okay, if no money comes in for the next, 6 to 8 months, will I still be okay?
mm,
There will be people who will, give you a whole bunch of, challenges that will come your way. Do you have the thick skin to actually handle that as well? So it's not easy, but I think if you have the ecosystem and you have the support system and you think you have a great product or idea, which there is a market fit for, I think then it's a cool idea. Like when I did the stock market game, the stock market had a craze. When I did WWF Trump cards, WWF Trump cards had, a super craze as well.
mm,
Today, if someone says I want to get into gifting and promotional products, I'm like, okay, you have to have a lot of capital because in a way we've also now become financiers, right? So let's say we have client X, okay, who wants to go to Samsonite and wants a trolley bag for 1,000 people. Now they could go directly, but why did they not go directly? Because Samsonite will not give them credit, but
mm,
our company will give them credit. So 1,000, okay, into 6,000. So which means that you have to have that, wherewithal to invest that amount of corpus, with Samsonite and get paid 30 days, 45 days, 60 days later, sometimes even longer. So in a way, you have to have a very high corpus because if you think, oh, there are no entry barriers, I was working somewhere and my company was giving out gifts, I'm sure I could do this as well because I have, a lead or a connection in that company.
mm.
It's potentially not going to work out, that well for you. So it's very competitive, and it's also requires a large ecosystem. So if you think you're a solopreneur who can pull this off, it's going to be a very, 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 very long cycle. So that would just be my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that's so true. It's not an easy journey, but it's not a rocket science as well. On this note, we will close the session. Thanks for joining us, Gaurav. It was a pleasure to have you on our platform, and kudos to the work that you're doing.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, and keep crushing it.
Likewise.